in the Middle East. Israeli media is reporting that a local leader of Hamas's military wing has been killed in an Israeli airstrike in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian media confirmed the attack, saying 4 other people were also killed when a vehicle was struck near the city of Tulkarm. Comes as the US says it's stepping up America's military presence in the Middle East, deploying additional warships and fighter jets as regional tension grows. The Department of Defense says it aims to strengthen protection for US troops in the region and Israel in response to growing threats from Iran and Iranian-backed fighters. While Iran and its allies have promised imminent retaliation against Israel, an announcer on Iran state TV said on Friday night that in the coming hours, the world would witness extraordinary scenes and very important developments. Well, the announcement came after a funeral ceremony in Qatar for the Hamas political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in Iran on Wednesday. Hamas and Iran have vowed revenge for the strike that targeted Mr. Haniyeh. Although Iran and its allies have blamed Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not claimed responsibility for his death. Let's speak to our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Jenny Hill. Hi, Jenny. Let's start with the American preparations. Talk us through what we know about what they're doing.
Yeah, the US has said that it will be sending an extra squadron of fighter jets to the region, as well as warships, stating that America's commitment to Israel's defense is, quote, ironclad. Now, it's not the first time we've seen such a scenario. Perhaps you'll remember that in April, Iran fired more than 300 drones and missiles at Israel. Israel was able to intercept them, shoot them down with the help of the US and other allies. Nevertheless, it is a reminder of just how dangerous and significant this moment is. I'm here in Tel Aviv on the beachfront where it all looks and feels very relaxed, people getting on with their daily lives, but people here are uneasy. We know that Iran has vowed, along with its proxies, revenge for 2 assassinations, that of the Hamas political leader and a senior Hezbollah commander. Everyone knows something is likely to happen, but it's not clear what that retaliation will be, what kind of scale we'll see, or indeed when it might happen. So this is a country on high alert. A number of international airlines have suspended flights to and from Israel, and ministers in the Israeli cabinet were sent home this weekend with satellite phones for use in the event of an attack which throws out any kind of communications network. As you know, there's urgent diplomacy going on right now to try to stop Israel's war on Gaza, which began following the October 7th attacks, from exploding into a region-wide conflict. And that's why the US's intervention now is not only about providing help to Israel militarily, but also focusing on ongoing efforts to try to diffuse the tension. The Pentagon spokeswoman said yesterday that they still think escalation is not an inevitability. America urging all parties in this to look at potential for a ceasefire. It's worth remembering, of course, that there are 2 groups of people in all of this whose voices have become somewhat lost in the geopolitics. People in Gaza, because don't forget Israel's war on Gaza goes on. There were people killed there last night in a number of strikes. Those people know that right now a ceasefire looks very remote. And then there are the families of Israeli hostages who are being held captive by Hamas in Gaza still. They know that a chance of being reunited with their loved ones is greatly diminished right now. One potentially positive note, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has sanctioned an Israeli delegation to travel to Cairo, potentially as early as this evening, for ongoing negotiations on a possible ceasefire. But as I say, right now, tension is high. The world is watching the Middle East and hoping that a crisis can be averted.
And Jenny, just briefly, could you talk us through what we know about the events in the West Bank there?
Yeah, reports suggest that a local leader of Hamas's military wing in one part of the West Bank, so not a senior figure, has been killed in an Israeli strike. It's also, I think, serving to illustrate the fact that normal daily events are going on here. As you know, the Israeli Defense Forces are committed to dismantling Hamas, its structure, its leadership. So they keep going after any Hamas, anyone within the leadership chain, although we believe this chap was very junior within that particular structure. Also worth pointing out that the daily exchange of fire from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and the Israeli Defense Forces in northern Israel continues. You know, people talk about an escalation. There's already a lot of violence going on an hourly, daily basis in this part of the world. The fear, of course, that any escalation could see that violence explode into a very different level.
Jenny, thank you very much for that. We're going to take a look at the wider geopolitics now. We can speak to Mamoun Abu Nawat, retired Jordanian Air Force General. Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you.
Talk us through your reaction to the US sending the reinforcements through.
This is sort of a demonstration at the same time, putting pressure on Hezbollah, Iran, and to prevent a wider escalation of the war. So that's what's, will this change the Hezbollah and Iranian regarding the retaliation of Haniyeh killing? That was a great insult for Iran. So I think the retaliation is coming. I can't predict when with this situation, probably in 2 weeks' time. That's normally the Iranian patient, what they call, and they calculate everything carefully before committing anything.
And what do you expect from the retaliation? What kind of decisions will Iran be making?
I think it's going to be different like the previous one, shooting 300 missile or the ballistic missile same time. They will use this mainly in high-value target or center of gravity target in Israel. Everything will be calculated not to expand or widen up to a regional conflict, because if this happens and nobody can control that in a way, there will be a catastrophe in the Gulf area, mainly with these oil field closing Bab Mandeb and Hormuz by Iran. The whole world will be stopped in that matter. And I think the Americans, they need more troops, like 3 to 4 carrier in the area, and almost 400,000 soldiers to conduct such a war. And I don't think the alliance, America cannot conduct a war in the region with no alliance. And I don't think with the diplomacy, etc., trying to contain the matter and not to widen up the escalation. This is the main thing.
Okay, and as Iran calculates its next step and other countries in the region wait for that, what is the role of other countries in the region? Which countries specifically will be saying what to whom here?
The Middle East is shattered. Country, they pro, they attack, and same time, Iran and its alliance, proxy, they want to finish this job and, stop the war in Gaza. Hezbollah said, stop the war in Gaza and we'll stop the attacking Israel. That's the main thing. And I don't see that the war in Gaza will stop or a ceasefire will reach, because without knowing exactly what's the day after in Gaza, Israel is committing a genocide on Gazan people, certainly the whole world saw that. So it would be difficult. And I think this is, if it stayed like this will be an endless war and forever war. That's the way I see it. It's very hard to fight ideas, and the Gazan and the Palestinian, it's from generation to generation, they will carry on resisting that. Israel has became sort of, I would say it clearly, a threat to a regional stability and security in our part of the world. They have to go for diplomacy, solve the problem, ceasefire on Gaza, etc. Otherwise, tension, violence, extremism will build up in our part of the world.
Mamoun Abu Nawar, thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thank you.
Thank you.